Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our webinar, Google Search Appliance and Setting. My name is Maria and I'm with the marketing team here at MC+A. We're so excited to be here today with you. We started this webinar series a couple of months ago. We're here one more time and we hope to still have some more webinars for 2017. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some ground rules. To ensure audio quality, everyone is in listen-only mode, but we always encourage questions, so please feel free to put those into the GoToWebinar chat area, and we'll be happy to assist you during the webinar or at the end in our Q&A session. If you're having any issues at all, just email us at marketing@mcplusa.com. You can also write us on Twitter, and we'll respond via direct message. Today's webinar is very special. We'll be having a special guest that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes. For now, we're going to go over the agenda. I'm going to tell you a little bit about MC+A for those of you who are not as familiar with us. Then we're going to go over the GSA, an overview of the long winding road. And then we're going to help you plan your transition, going over some steps, alternatives, and last but not least, we have a special guest from Coveo. He's going to tell you about selecting your next search engine with Coveo. So let's get started. I'm going to present our speakers for today. We have, first of all, Michael Sismore. He's our Managing Director. We have Stephen Clava, GSA Deployment Specialist at MC+A, and we have our special guest, Chad Johnson, Platform Evangelist at Coveo. So please welcome all of them to our webinar today.
And thanks, Maria, for that introduction. Thank you, Chad, for joining us today. It's a special moment. Chad is one of the if I exclude myself from the list, he's the obvious de facto Google Search Appliance deployment expert in the world. So we've kind of collectively branded ourselves as the two grumpy old men in Muppet Town because of our length and history with being Google partners. I think we were talking earlier that Chad and I first met in 2008, and we've kind of kept together professionally speaking over that time, and now Chad is at Coveo, and so I had the opportunity to invite him here to kind of relay some of the thoughts that he has on what the deprecation of the GSA means to current customers and what people think about or what they should be thinking when they're looking for the next generation search platform. Chad, did you have anything you want to add right here?
Oh, me. Am I the one on the left or the right? I forget.
Well, I'm technically taller, but I don't think that we ever established.
Yeah, that's good. I'll just remind people that, yeah, I'm representing Coveo today, but I'll be speaking a little bit about just my broader experience over the last 7 or 8 years doing everything enterprise search.
Thanks, Chad. So we have a bit of an introduction about MC+A. I'm not sure that everyone knows much about us because this is, this is an open webinar. MC+A, we're the 1% of the 1% in GSA deployments. So we've kind of honed a practice around taking the Google Search Appliance into companies and helping them find their information fast. What we specialized in was the more complicated and technically challenging piece of that. So we put out a survey a few years ago. One of our competitors did as well. And if you look at how people were deploying the technology, most were underutilizing it. And we looked at it and saw, like, well, the things that we're involved with are the smallest piece of what people are doing. So we kind of came up with that phrase. We're global in nature, so we work primarily in the Americas, although both in Europe and Asia we do some work. We have, as Maria said, she's based in Santiago, Chile. We work the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking countries in LATAM, Canada, and the U.S. And we're essentially focused on helping people transform the business through knowledge. There's a lot of noise in technology, and our goal is to simplify it through iterations to reduce the complexity of the problem down into a more simple solution, which is inherently more efficient to run and maintain. We don't really brand ourselves as making things more complicated. We're really focused on the outcome, and we love this slide that kind of shows that when you start a project, there's a lot of, and perhaps you're in the position right now where you don't know which direction to go in. There's a lot of questions, and what someone like Chad or myself is able to do is to hone that down, reduce the noise, and focus on the few pieces that are really the complicated parts, constructing an elegant solution over it. But we definitely love the iteration and the simplification of the solution. Our obligatory customer slide deck. So we work with major brands internationally, as well as I said here in the U.S., small to the global 100. And then our practice areas, we focus on helping people find answers and insights fast. We've broken that down to 4 practice areas here, which is enterprise search, custom development, analytics, big data, and change management. And now, without further ado, we will slide over into really the topic at hand today. My magic mouse doesn't kill us. So when we start to think about what the Google Search Appliance replacement looks like, we first step back and say, like, what were people interested in looking for the GSA? Why did they attempt to solve a problem with it? And in order to do that, we want to look back before we can look forward. The GSA has been around since 2002. It grew in tremendous capabilities from that point. Initially just had a web crawler. When we got involved in 2005, there wasn't an ingestion framework. And then gradually over time, it built itself up into being a Gartner Magic Quadrant leading technology. And everyone who came forward to us essentially said, I can use Google to find information. Why can't I use a tool like this to find my information internally? And that was the kind of the brand promise of it. So Google's got a great search engine. How can we make this simple? And when we started out doing search with things like Verity and Lucene, it was really a framework or a code library that you built up a search application from it. And to have it all run on an appliance that was sized and scaled was truly a leap forward at the time. But we're here in 2016, and enterprise search has been around for 2 decades. So why are we still having this problem? For most organizations, finding information is still a core issue, and it just shows up in every application. The more content you make, the harder it is to find, and very often the information that you're looking for is truly hidden in plain sight. Something that we focus on is the notion of unstructured data. So there's a lot of demos and big data type of projects where they're looking at logs or Internet of Things streams of information, and that itself is one problem. What the GSA worked on is the unstructured content, so the Word documents, the content management systems that you had in an organization. Getting these into a system that you could use to retrieve it is part of the challenge. And then this is a Donald Rumsfeld-ism, but you know what you know what you don't know, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. and with that, a lot of organizations aren't aware of the data duplication that they're making. They aren't aware of the content that's out there that they can't find, and that causes significant operational burden with the various systems that you have. So what we do is we try to index these content systems into a unified platform and call it universal search. So can I use the GSA to organize and find my company's information? And that's been really the goal of what the GSA is supposed to have done. And where we are today is in February, Google made an announcement to its customers announcing the winding down of sales. This effectively killed the product. In June, they announced the replacement of or the next generation search technology, which is called Springboard, and effectively it's all going to be living in the cloud as part of Google's larger cloud strategy or Google Cloud Platform. The organizations reorganized under Google Cloud, and as time goes on, there's the GSA, the Enterprise Search Division that we work with, is being rolled up under that. Chad, do you have anything here you want to add?
Well, it still just remains to be seen what Google's going to do next. They've really abandoned their market to some respect, and I think that's why we're all talking today, because there's a lot of ambiguity about what Google's going to do next, what the market's going to do to cater to the customers that are leaving the GSA, and we've seen a lot of activity this year around this.
Yeah, I think that it's also what we have tried to re-emphasize in many ways is Google said one thing, but when you looked at the details, it may not have been obvious what was going on. And we put this slide together, kind of putting the near and long-term timeline together for the GSA. So as of today, and I'm looking at my watch, for the next several days, we could still sell 2-year appliances, brand new. We could still renew customers with a 2-year agreement, and that's through effectively this calendar year. So if you have some desire to have a 2-year renewal, you can contact us in the next week, and we'd be happy to set you up with that. Starting January 1st, or I guess it's the 2nd, there's no new sales. So if you're an existing customer, we can upgrade you, we can extend you for a certain amount of time, essentially 1 year from the end term of your current term, but and that's it. And then as of 2018, the GSA starts shutting down. So the longest period right now that someone would have a device is someone who bought a 3-year term earlier this year or bought a 2-year term like today. But after the 31st of this month, everything's going to be 1 year. So it's a 1-year countdown. If you can put that in your own organization's perspective of how quickly you need to move.
And Michael, do you think it's fair to describe what people would be using in 2018 as basically a 2015, 2016 GSA? We're not seeing any changes or additional features, so they'll be using at best a 3-year-old search engine by that point, right?
Yes. Now, they technically put out 7.6 in, Stephen, was it August that they put out 7.6?
Yeah, around mid-August.
And that's the last version that we expect to come out on anything but a maintenance mode. A few features there. Chad, you're going to love it. It now supports scripting the forms login page. I saw the list, and it looked like they kind of went through and added kind of the laundry list of low-hanging fruit, just a bunch of things that had maybe been queued up to be fixed, and kind of gave it a last hurrah. Yeah, I think they probably popped the champagne and moved on to their cloud.
Yeah.
Versions.
One thing to point out, though, that they did depreciate a number of items out of it, so it's kind of interesting.
That is a good point because we do have customers who don't really feel like setting up an offboard database connector, file crawler, just for maintaining the system. So yeah, they finally did do the deprecation that they promised.
I think they had to get themselves into a position where they could support it with maybe a smaller crew for the rundown. Got rid of some of the more high maintenance features that were causing them trouble.
There's things that never worked, right? Okay, so what we say is, plan for the transition. What our recommendation is to, like anything, you're going to start with an assessment. And that assessment is going to look at really what did you aim to accomplish by implementing the Google Search Appliance. And we have on our website a questionnaire that you can, this in the form of a PDF and a questionnaire that you can, so you don't have to write feverishly right now these questions. But what brought you to the GSA? What were you looking to get from a goals perspective? And how is it being used? So a lot of times we did a migration earlier this year, and the customer thought that some content was being indexed, wasn't. Thought that it was being used, it wasn't, and it was quite shocking, that because it's not a trivial investment. We're talking 0 queries per month, Chad, and 300. It's so. That's making your decision of what to do. You definitely have to look at why you're where you're at. Then the next step is to look at, did you achieve those goals? So I talked to a customer earlier today, and they just said that they love the GSA, have no problems with it. It's doing everything it's intended to do. They're going to stay on it for as long as possible because they're just swamped with a variety of other initiatives, and potentially they'll just wait for Springboard, or they don't have any customer need driving it. But you're looking at the goals, your goals. Where do you want to, relative to your first part of the assessment? Where do you want to go? Do you want to go with an OEM equivalent? Our recommendation is flat out probably no. As I think you agreed, Chad, as well. If you're rolling off the technology, you're rolling off it. There is just leaps and bounds more capabilities out there in systems such as Coveo's, which Chad will talk about in a few minutes, that you should be considering. But
it's almost a disservice to think of this as just, hey, Michael, how much would it cost me to move what I have over to something else? I think you should take advantage of this opportunity. It's painful, but you have to do it. So you might as well look at what else you could do at this point instead of just moving an 8-year-old. I'm generalizing here, but an old GSA application, moving it over exactly as is.
Right. I don't think that moving it over should be the first choice of any organization. The skill set required to maintain a GSA interface relies on the 10,000 line code of XSLT code that people use, and simply just not what anyone wants to get up and work on a given day. It's I think it's definitely a disservice to just think of the solution in that mindset. Although some people, they don't have the use case to do anything more complicated than that. But it's not that. In general, taking one system out and putting it into another, whether it be a database switch, operating systems, if you don't look at what capabilities are there in the new technology, it's generally not optimized. So we've got a couple of slides here now to talk about basically after you complete the assessment, what are your options? So the first one, and this is what Google's suggestion is, just simply wait for Springboard. It's Google's future direction. It's cloud-based. It has, we've been rumored to have 80 engineers working on it night and day, feverishly across the globe. It has everything that you'd ever want. If you're in the early trusted tester phase, you have access to it. If not, this is a screenshot from the release. What you can see is that it's very Google Apps focused. There's currently only an Android version of it. There's no iOS edition, and it's web-based. So if you have email, Drive, Google Sites, Calendar, it'll find that. They've made an announcement with Box at BoxWorks about surfacing content from Box, but no real information given there. We don't know what it's going to be priced at. I think it's going to be, it's been inferred that it would be more user-based pricing, kind of along the lines of Google Apps. It's built on the Google Apps backend, not the Google Cloud. That's something interesting. But that's about what we know on that. You can take this opportunity to move to the cloud, and we have one of the Gartner Magic Quadrant leading search companies on the phone with us, who is paving the way in the cloud. So that's your big vendors are going to be Coveo, Elastic, AWS Cloud Search, and there's definitely differences between all of those. AWS reportedly did about 100 million in the first 6 months in terms of its use, but it's very much a service that you have to build up from. Chad will talk a little bit about Coveo, so I'll leave that to him in a minute. But what we see a lot of times with Coveo is its tight integration with Salesforce and Sitecore being the dominant, compelling use cases for going there. And Chad, I'm sure that you can speak to other use cases, but also being a Magic Quadrant leading companies is nothing to shy away from. Talked a little bit about AWS, and here the real trick here is that essentially your content has to go into S3 if you're going to index it, and then it just kind of slurps it up from there. There's no connectors, there's no nada. And Elastic's got its version of it as well, very similar, no ingestion or UI. You could stick with on-premise. Our leading candidates for this are more or less open source based, and that is potentially a consideration for people, being that you're not stuck to a vendor's whim when they want to wind down the product. Here, the ones we like are same ones, Elastic, Solar, and Lucidworks, which is a commercial version of Solar. Elastic is it's pretty much the de facto open source log analysis toolkit. So if you have structured data, if you want to look at your logs, visualize them, this is a great tool set because it comes ready to run, doesn't really cost you anything. Solar is the de facto open source enterprise toolkit, has a lot of has more ingestion frameworks and has the longevity that companies typically like looking at. And Lucidworks Fusion is essentially the commercial version of or builds on the open source edition of Solar. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the speaking to Chad.
Thanks, Mikkel. So just a quick caveat. Yes, I am representing Coveo today, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a talk that was along the lines of what I would have given as a consultant. I was in consulting for 17 years, and give you a little bit of insight into a conversation I had with a lot of our customers about how to select their next search engine. Michael, go to the next slide. Yeah, so the question people have a lot at first is, how do I get started? What's out there? I'm not going to just pick one option. I'm going to do do my homework and my research. And I think about this like buying a new car. I don't buy a new car every year, and it's the kind of thing that when I look at cars these days, they're very different than the last time I bought a car. It was CD changers, and they were advertising power seats and moonroofs and things that were very different. Today it's iPhone integration, and it's tire pressure sensors, and they all have Bluetooth, and they have automatic climate control in the front and the back, and it's the same in enterprise search. I was in a little bit of a vacuum, I'll admit, with the GSA. Both Michael and I were tasked with doing the impossible with the GSA. We were asked to do something, and the GSA was a hammer and a wrench, and we could make it do a lot of very cool things. But I think as I take a step back, there were a lot of things about it that had not changed very much over the last 5 or even 10 years. There were a lot of things in the core index that were very, very much just the way they had always been. There were limitations. We would always ask about features like audio and video processing and optical character recognition, and a lot of times the answer we got was there's just not enough extra horsepower left on the GSA to do that. We were kind of constrained by being an appliance. So Michael, if you go to the next slide, I've got a list of not exhaustive list, but a starter list of what I consider some modern expectations in 2016, 2017 for enterprise search. These are things that I think are becoming almost common and should be things that you think about for your next application. I think, am I correct? Yeah, almost everything in here was not on the GSA. There were maybe a few, but in general, these had never made it to the Google platform. The advanced processing is getting easier with more horsepower, so we're able to see more advanced thumbnails and preview, and documents being translated into multiple languages, and transcriptions being available. And even if the core search engine doesn't offer this, which not many do, built in, they should give you some extensible, points where you can, if you want to send out your file to be transcribed, you can do that in a workflow and customize the indexing process. I'm a little torn on user interface builders, for example, but they are becoming more common. I think there's some acknowledgement that when you unwrap your search engine on Christmas morning, you should be able to get a user interface up and running fairly easily. I don't ever like to see someone tied into an ecosystem, so I'll discuss a little bit of Coveo's strategy on that, how we maybe kind of straddle the divide between build your own and a proprietary interface builder. Analytics, another big one. GSA, Google's known for Google Analytics, and I was always shocked at how little the GSA did to help you see what was going on in your search engine. It had all the raw data, but it had almost nothing available to help you compare and contrast and zoom out and look at a broad swath of data and make sense of it. And then things like machine learning take that analytics data and automatically improve your search results. I'll give you some examples of that very shortly. But I kind of started off this conversation by saying, how should I select my search engine? Well, I've given you, an ever-growing list of not advanced, but just modern features. So, Michael, if you go to the next slide, we come to a problem. The everything bagel is great for breakfast, but it's bad for search. I think that if I've seen a lot of RFPs in my days, and a lot of times they're asking for everything. They think they want everything on that list, and I think it's admirable, but potentially unrealistic. I think that my recommendation is typically to think of the market. So to think back a few slides to when Michael was describing the market and the options. There's arguably 6 or 10 or 12 viable enterprise search options out there. I would contend that each one is good at a couple of those features. I think that some of them are better at site search. Some of them are better at document ingestion and have better connectors. Some of them are better with machine learning. Some of them are better with analytics. Some of them are better with unstructured data. And I think that you can fairly quickly take a list of, say 10 or 12 market leading enterprise search engines and narrow it down to just a couple that focus on the things that are important to you. So Michael, if you'll advance, I've focused on a couple of things here that I have found after I've been at Coveo for a quarter of a year now, not that long, but I've been working with them for most of 2016 since the GSA announcement, and this is my kind of short list of things that I think Coveo brings to the equation that get us beyond what we could do with the GSA. So I'm going to take you through just a very quick kind of 5-step story arc here that I think these features are good examples of things that you could do, should do, should expect of your search engine well, we're almost getting on 2017. I keep saying 2016, but you know what I mean. So the first one is extensibility, and I've got 2 examples here of proof that a search engine can be easy to use without having to be a black box. The GSA was notoriously closed in many respects. There were a lot of things that you could not alter. I think that you should expect of your search engine that you have the ability to change some things that might come up as being important. Coveo gives a very modifiable index pipeline. What that means is that when you're ingesting content from one of our connectors, from one of your connectors, from a web crawler, from anywhere, we give you simple scripts that you can write, code your own, or use ones that we've provided to enrich the content, to transform the content, to inject your own thumbnails if that's what you want to do. If we don't offer audio to text transcription, you could do it by writing an indexing extension that takes the audio data and sends it off to a service and translates it into text and then adds that text to our index. So it's extremely extensible. They're written in a script that you can embed directly in our cloud platform. Michael, on the next slide, the same is true for our querying pipeline. So this is after the content has been indexed, all the different things that I might want to do to alter the search experience. This can include changing stop words, changing the dictionary for synonyms and thesaurus entries. The biasing adjustments can be very contextual and conditional, so I can kind of, as needed and where appropriate, I can alter the ranking in certain contexts. So I can say if a user is coming from a certain audience or is on a certain page, maybe I need to change the weight a little bit higher or lower. The point is that we give a nice graphical user interface for making a lot of these ranking expressions and ranking changes, triggers for landing pages or different experiences that you want people to have on the search engine. We could do some of this stuff with the GSA, but it was, Michael, wouldn't you agree that it was difficult? It often ended up being kind of a mess to try to do some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're buying the general purpose flower, and if you want to do something outside of it, you pay the price. And paying the price meant that we could come and light up a GSA. In fact, someone like earlier this week had wanted to start a procurement process for the GSA, and it was just simple website search. I had to give them the bad news about the time frame, which didn't work out for them. But they're like, how hard is this? I'm like, well, you just have one website with a form. We can train the GSA. You know, this is a couple days worth of work. If you take that with solar, you start talking about, oh, let's how are we going to do our text analyzers? How are we going to plan our field mappings? How are we going to tokenize? How are we going to plan? How does this thing scale? How do we replicate? How do we shard? And so it was just like, and then we call that dolphin talk. If you could look at our blog posts, we have this dolphin talking, which is just, you know, that sound that dolphins talk when they talk is what our clients would hear when we're talking those things. You know, they'd like, I just want it to work. And if you exit the simple use case, we had a case where they wanted called fitment. So based on, you know, make, model, year, show me only the products that work, and that was something that was very, very difficult to employ. Not only on GSA but in solar as well. So yeah, if you got outside the use case, people would just end up in a world of pain because you can't do anything, or you're doing it after the response.
Yeah, I hear comments like that all the time, and I've experienced it myself trying to do certain things in solar. And I try to say this in a way that this audience will believe me in the most unbiased way, and say I believe personally and truly that Coveo does a good job of splitting the difference here, of giving you enough points where you can modify things, gives you enough access to change things without making you have to go into configuration files and edit stuff by hand. We strive to make everything that you can do exposed through our consistent admin console and user interface, and if not, it's something that we would love to add. So we don't expect you to have to go and edit a bunch of, you know, I files to do stuff. Yet I still feel like we give a good trade-off and let you do these kind of advanced modifications.
I think what we did once we absorbed the deprecation was look at people who beat us in the last 2 or 3 years, who we heard post-deployment how much they like the solution. So we've known I've known of Coveo since probably 2006. You know, when it was back then SharePoint. The free edition of SharePoint Search was like an IIS plugin, and it didn't have any search. And so you could just recognize where the problem was, and Coveo had an out-of-the-box solution for that. And it gradually, you know, built up to where we were competing on or losing deals from Google. They're like, so people would buy a GSA, and it's I've got this search maturity matrix based, and GSA is usually on the bottom. So someone who doesn't have search, they get a GSA, and then once they educate themselves, they don't like the GSA because it's limited. So they don't know anything about search, then they learn something about search, they figure out that the GSA can't be extended to what they want, and that always affected our renewal rates. You know, so we would essentially be training people for their next search project. And I think that you're right with respect to the feature set of what Coveo gives you out of the box. We built some demos as fast or faster than what we did with the GSA. And
I'm glad you mentioned the 2006 experience, and you reminded me that I forgot to mention that everything I'm showing here today is based on almost a complete rewrite of Coveo that was deployed called Coveo Cloud. This is a cloud-based search engine now that has some roots in the search index that's been out there for 10 plus years, but most of the features that I'm showing you now are new for the cloud edition, and things like the analytics that I'll show next. Matter of fact, you can go to the next slide, Michael, and I'll talk about the analytics, because this is something that requires the scale of AWS, Redshift databases, and all kinds of things in the cloud to support this. One of the most common things I was asked on the GSA is, what should I be looking at? Should I be running reports? What should I be checking? And it was hard. You would dump a report, and it was a flat list of the top 100 keywords, and that was it. The most popular time of day for your searches. It was useless. And to do anything else.
I was going to say, the report was like cutting-edge technology in 2004.
If that.
We never showed that on the sales cycle. Here's your, you talk off it. But I think that the analytic dashboard here is truly compelling.
It's real time. It updates in minutes. You're seeing live search traffic from same day. I can't remember exactly how granular it is, but it's very near real time, and they refresh on the fly when you load different reports. They're configurable, so this is kind of a pick and choose. You can design. We also have customer success agents that will help our customers and help them go through these dashboards and learn what are the best practices. Like even when I look at this, sometimes I have to think about, well, what do I want to look at? What slice or dice do I want to take to come up to some conclusion? So I have to maybe build different dashboards to support different hypotheses that I have, or to prove that something's working. So I'm kind of getting into the next slide now. So once I have a good basis for usage analytics, and this is a detailed view of a called a visit browser, by the way. I kind of skipped over this, but this is just to show you the depth of information that's available for every click, for every search, even things that are outside of search, like page views and opening a ticket or canceling out of something can be monitored as part of our analytics workflow. You can really go in and drill down deep to figure out what's going on in a certain scenario. So another pet peeve of mine, you can go ahead and advance, Michael. Another pet peeve of mine on the GSA was when you would make a change, you were very blind. You had no idea if the change was good or bad, or if it was fixing one thing and breaking 9 others. You had no idea. So I love that our usage analytics dashboards extends to our A/B testing module. Can make any change in that query pipeline that we showed earlier and try something different, and then I can set up a test. I can say, please send 10% of the traffic to my proposed algorithm, to my new scenario, and run it for a day or two. And then I can use that same real-time dashboard to look at it and see the difference. I can compare the click-throughs. I can compare how long people spend on the site. I can compare how many queries they run. And I can really prove to myself, and maybe more importantly to my boss or to whoever else is interested in the performance of the search, that what we changed made a difference, that it helped.
And in the shortest possible way, explain what a query pipeline is, because that obviously wasn't anything that you could do with the GSA.
Well, I'm assuming that most of the people on the phone are somewhat familiar with the GSA. So in GSA terms, it was called like a biasing policy would be part of it. Maybe even a front end would be all the different things that you could do in a GSA front end, like setting up certain synonym policies, certain result biasing policies. For us, the weight, we call them rankings or weightings, where I can say, like, if the metadata equals X, then I want to give it more of a positive bias in the search results, or a positive weighting. There were 7 or 8 things across the tabs there, Michael, in the query pipeline. I would say just another simple way of saying it would be sort of adjustments in the relevancy, all the different things I can do to adjust the experience. And you can basically set up an A/B test comparing any 2 set of settings. So I can do one little change and call that scenario A, and I can do a different change and call it scenario B.
Cool.
So we now get to kind of the third part of our story. So we've seen how I can look at my analytics. We've seen how I can manually make some adjustments and see if they're working. I think our crown jewel here is Coveo Reveal, which says, yeah, but you shouldn't necessarily have to do all that stuff yourself. There's too many signals. There's too many things that influence search results and rankings. Let us take a crack at it for you. You know, I get asked, what should I be doing to improve my search rankings? And I think in a lot of cases the answer may be take your hands off the wheel and let the self-driving car do its thing here. So Reveal is our self-driving car. Reveal looks at the analytics data. It looks at which search results are giving positive and negative outcomes. It's a JavaScript framework that you could attach to things like, did the customer end up having to open a ticket in our ticketing system? If so, we might want to flag that as a negative outcome. Search didn't work in that case. If they purchased something, put it into their shopping cart, well, then we can flag that as a positive outcome. Coveo Reveal is constantly analyzing all of those positive and negative outcomes, and it is shifting the weight of the search results dynamically to give the best results. Fabulous technology. It's working very, very well in practice, and it's got a couple of slides here just to show you that though it is complex, turning it on and setting it up is actually really straightforward. It's just a couple of screens and you're done. All right, almost done here. The last, just want to show a couple of places where Coveo Reveal is being used in action. One really exciting one is that we've been added to Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud. If you do a help search within Photoshop, you're getting you're getting highly relevant search results powered by Coveo directly in the product. A great use case for Coveo, just because this is not a place where you want to give somebody 500 search results. When they want to know how to crop an image or they want to know how to add a layer, there's probably a couple of articles that are most likely to answer their question. I think with Coveo Reveal, we're getting much closer to that. Here is the best result for your answer. It's also contextual. Reveal is adding a contextual scenario so that I can have maybe different recommendations if I'm in Adobe Photoshop than if I'm in Adobe Acrobat, because the context is different. How to do something, like how to crop an image, is different in those two products. So we can set up different learning models for those two contexts very easily. Another interesting example is keyword spotting. So with Reveal, based on those positive and negative outcomes, we're starting to learn which words in a query and which words in the content are yielding the best results. So we've done kind of an interesting mashup here where, let's say you're in a call center and you have inbound emails or someone is filling out a ticket, a help ticket. We can look through that content and find the words in the content that have the most meaningful influence on the search results and automatically do searches for those. This could be wired up in a self-help scenario to sort of divert or deflect a call. It could even be used by agents to help automate the answering of inbound emails. There's a lot of interesting uses here. We've even wired it up with voice search. If you think about someone talking into an Amazon Echo or Google device, they talk in full sentences. There's a lot of superfluous words in what they say, and we want to quickly get to the words that are the most important to search for, and using Coveo Reveal keyword spotting, we're able to find the important words. It's just a kind of interesting side effect of the algorithms that we have. All right. And lastly was the UI. I mentioned to you that I think we straddle a nice line here. We do provide a very, what I think is best of breed user interface builder. Michael's used it. He can give a testimony in a second. But we have also open sourced all of the UI modules. They're in GitHub, and if there is not a widget that you like, you can add your own widget. If you want to take one of our widgets and modify the behavior, you can do that. So, I think the example on the right was, creating a grid view versus a list view. Kind of like the sorting. Sort by relevance, sort by date. You could add a little widget like that, and you can program it. You can use it for yourself. If you want, you can contribute it back to the GitHub project. But you're not locked into just the UI widgets that we provide. So it's not completely open. You still have to deploy on our runtime, on our framework, but you aren't locked in if there isn't something available that you need. You can build your own. You can take a look at our widgets and extend them if you need to. So very powerful. It's JavaScript based. It's all asynchronous JavaScript, so it's very easy to add it. Michael, how many times have you been asked to add a Google search box into some application like Jira or something, and you have to go in and edit a bunch of, every time. So being JavaScript, it's very easy to add it on top of an existing application.
Yeah, and I would say that as we try to standardize on common frameworks, now it's simply tell us what the element is, reference this JavaScript, and a magical search box and search results appear, which is awesome. I would say that this builder is one of the best that I've used. Very intuitive. Don't have to look at the docs, and it's constructed in the search interface as you would expect it. It's not necessarily opinionated in it's opinionated in its form, but it's opinionated with best of breed, if that makes sense. And just certain UX elements are what is expected. The row of content sources on the top, for example, is expected, and from any interface, and not simply like, well, here's your endpoint. Like, well, I don't. People who are interested in GSA aren't necessarily interested in just talking to endpoints.
Good. Michael, I'm done. I hope I've shown some people some things that I think are above and beyond what the GSA was offering us for the last decade. So.
Great, I think so. I think it's very exciting. We just have one plug. As the GSA is winding down, we do have customers currently and offer to other customers to do managed services for your GSA. So if you want to start to reduce your footprint internally for that, we have a team of people who have a lot of experience, and it allows you, like I said, to free up your resources to work on the next thing. We do have a couple of questions here. One that I guess we did skip over. So can you talk about Google Custom Search Engine or Google Site Search? So that is the current cloud offering from Google. It's based on the google.com index, so your content has to be in google.com. And there are a lot of good and bad things with that. So any feature that gets in the way of ad generation will be deprecated and has been. So things like fast indexing has been turned off in the last year, for example. If you have a very simple use case of keyword search with an autocomplete and you want to do some best bets, it's a pretty compelling product. The general edition runs about $15K a year to start, but you could deploy it in minutes. And getting your content from your website into it is the same as making sure that you're visible on google.com. We don't really talk about it here because our search cases are more complex. You can't do things like security. Like security, which just sort of negates it. You can't do filters, so no metadata, filters on the side. You can't tune relevancy. Though most people, so a lot of people would use that and say, okay, well, I want the GSA, and it's like, well, they're kind of different products. They're not the same, but they're nearline, but they're not the same. There's a lot more stemming that's available in Custom Edition. Chad?
I do think it's not. I think it's just maybe the question was, is it going away? I just wanted to point out I don't think there's any plans to get rid of it, right? I think it's just going to stay the way it is in this transition.
Right. And then how often do we see vendors winding down their product support beyond Google? It's not uncommon. I think that what we feel, and Chad, I want your opinion after I say this, is it's somewhat unprecedented to wind down a product without having the replacement product, and to do it so abruptly. I think that it makes total sense for Google to go in the cloud, but with the what do we do now from Google customers? That's the sort of the shocking part. Chad, do you have anything?
I think we all knew that cloud was coming from Google. You and I both knew it. We just didn't ever expect that it would come out, that they would turn off the GSA so abruptly before announcing and releasing the replacement version. Coveo has transitioned, for example, from an on-premise solution to a version 1 cloud to a version 2 cloud, and I can say that our roadmap has been fairly transparent to help people get from one to the other. It was kind of shocking. I'm sure there are examples out there, but I had a hard time thinking of someone having done it like this.
Yeah. Here's a better way to say it. Come 3 weeks from today, you will not be able to buy an enterprise search product from Google unless you're a current customer. They're not taking any new, and what the next generation is, no one knows. Will our GSA actually shut off in 2018? We believe we continue to use the unsupported mode. In general, this is like the 99% answer, all GSAs are sold with a term license. There are some rare cases that people had existing open licenses that weren't term based. So if you have a term license, you can go to your GSA and check the license. That's the date that it will shut down. There's typically a 30-day or 15 or 5-day grace period, but if you bought it if you bought a GSA today, in December of 2018, it will begin to shut down, and in 2019 there will be no GSAs operating by the end of the year, other than the 1 or 2 that have the one-off licenses, which we don't really sell that too often, but at all. But yes, they are shutting off. Done. And I've got a stack of them. I think we have probably in a storage locker. I think we have about 12 GSAs that we're going to try to make like a Lego set out of them or something. But they're bricks. A couple other questions. You guys are HIPAA compliant, Chad?
Yeah, that's correct. We've gone through compliance. It's both a technical and a procedural certification. So there are different certifications we have to do for our personnel, for our IT support staff, for our agents to be compliant. And there is a version of the cloud search engine that's spinning up. I think it's this quarter. We'll have our first customers that are going on a HIPAA compliant instance of our cloud search.
Beautiful. Last one. Who do I contact for more information? You'll be getting a follow-up email or two, and feel free to reply back to that. We'd be happy to talk to you. MC+A can lead that for you. Again, I think we have one more slide, and that is if you have, again, any other questions, comments, want to reach out to us, here's our social tags. Drop an email. We'd love to have a conversation with you. We are 5 minutes over. Sorry for that, but this was a really great discussion, Chad.
Good, thanks. If anyone has any questions about Coveo, please feel free to go through Michael. Michael's one of our partners, and he will field any of your questions and get you over to us if you need help.
Thank you, everyone.